What's up? Welcome back, Marvel Schmarvel. We're here to talk about the brand new Disney Plus series, Loki, which started this week. Its first episode aired on the 9th. Depending when this episode comes out, our episode comes out, it might be today, it might be tomorrow, but we're talking about episode number 1 of the new series, Loki, starring Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and a lot of other faces I recognize, but I'm not going to lie, I don't know the names of yet, but I will learn them. I know the other actress that I really like, she was also in Lovecraft Country. I don't remember if you guys know her name or not, but in the first episode, she was pretty great. But yeah, man, it's good to be back again. This series is a YouTube only that we do through our Movie Schmovie podcast. We kind of just get together to do these videos, either when there are new Disney Plus series like Loki in this situation, or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or WandaVision. Also, we did MODOK, which is a Hulu series. You can go back and listen to that episode, which is, people are still out there talking about MODOK right now, apparently. I think I don't know, were we wrong about MODOK? Because I've seen a lot of people raving about it, and I've second guessed myself, but
I don't know, man. I was thinking about that. Like I've seen people kind of rave about it. I'm still like, I stand by what I said.
I think it comes down to just that style of comedy. Like, I think we acknowledge the things about the show that we thought were like solid, or that could be built on, especially if they come back. And we even said, I think that we like where they left it at the end of the season. So, or at least that had some potential to it. So I don't know. It's not that unusual. That was one I was sort of prepared for. Even when we were talking about it, I was like, wow, there's nobody here who really fell for it, whereas I could easily see people thinking that tone, especially with the kind of the intelligence of the writing and the sort of nerd IQ behind that show. I could see a lot of people really digging it, but I don't think it was any of our tempo necessarily. And it's kind of a tempo show. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's all style in a way. So if you don't like the style.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, so that is an example of what we're doing here on Marvel Schmarvel. But, also in a month or so, when Black Widow comes out in theaters, finally, we'll be talking about that as well. So we're covering all the bases in terms of Marvel, whether you're on Disney or Hulu or in theaters or whatever it might be. If you want to hear what we have to say about Marvel properties, Marvel titles, whatever it is, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so you get notifications when these episodes drop. But for the case of Loki, on a week-by-week basis, we'll be dropping the videos as soon as we can after the new episodes drop on Disney Plus every Wednesday. So guys, welcome back to Marvel Schmarvel. What's up? How you guys doing?
Doing pretty well, man. Doing pretty well.
Man.
I'm excited. We're like getting into a new chapter of a story in the Marvel universe that feels a lot different than anything we've seen up until this point. Loki. This is not a low-key story. It's actually pretty big in scale.
Yeah.
So
what were you guys feeling about this? I guess either coming out of Winter Soldier or Falcon Winter Soldier, or a year ago when they started talking about Loki. Like, what was your excitement level? I guess let's frame it against the three that we know came out in the last 3 or 4 months. Like, where were you kind of placing your excitement, your anticipation for the Loki series?
I think there's just a level of quality control right now with Disney that could, I don't know how long this is going to last, but right now they everything is above average to excellent typically, right? And I came in with expectation prior to seeing the all the other shows that I would at least get a slice of a character that's one of the most dynamic that doesn't get enough screen time, in my humble opinion. So as the Marvel shows started to show up, I really got a lot more excited, because it just seems like there's just this attention to detail that I knew would happen. But to see it play out through Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision just gave me an idea that this was going to go for something. It was going to be very unique. Yeah. It was going to be specifically low-key. It wouldn't feel like they're just plopping low-key into a random story. And, but I didn't have any trailer. There was no trailer to speak of. There was that brief little teaser, but it really didn't give me a sense of what the show was. So I was honestly very nervous, even though it was probably going to be really good, but still nervous because we didn't really have much leading up to it.
I felt like I saw plenty of trailers. I feel like I saw 3 or 4 that gave me that idea, but I kind of agree with what you said as far as like, I didn't know what to think until I saw the first teaser they released. And instantly I was like, oh, I totally see how this is a show. I totally see because the first teaser, they get that idea across of, I mean, it's so simple, but it's like, you broke the timeline. We're going to make you fix it. Boom. We're there. And then the fact that there's this organization that's governing the timeline. I mean, it's a new wrinkle. It's similar to the way the Eternals trailer hints at this mythology that's outside of the scope of what we've seen before with the Marvel stuff. This is something else that is like kind of pointedly, almost as a joke. This is introduced as something that's like, you can't be serious. And Tom Hiddleston is great as Loki deals with this. What? What are you saying? That there's like people that are actually talking about the timeline of these movies almost in a purely meta sense, almost in a purely, we're talking about the franchise, we're talking about the movies, we're talking about alternate versions of characters. And it's like, it instantly, when I saw that teaser, I was like, oh, I see how this is a concept. And I think that's when I got really excited for the show. I think before that, it just sounded like all the shows they announced were what you said, Ronald, characters that didn't get much time in the movies and we're going to get more time. So you had Wanda and Vision, you had Falcon and Winter Soldier, and you've got Loki. I mean, literally the names of the shows tell you the characters you're going to get to see. And in every case, it was somebody who hasn't had a movie based around them exactly yet.
Right.
Now, Loki may have been the biggest of these characters because he was sort of a lead in 2 or 3 movies. He's one of the main characters in Avengers. He's one of the main characters in the first Thor, certainly, and in Thor: The Dark World, certainly, and in Ragnarok. So we've gotten a lot of Loki, but it was cool how this episode, really, I was intrigued. I was surprised in a way at how much this episode was just a very talky episode that laid out the stuff we kind of already know about the show. But I thought they did a great job of setting a kind of character dialogue based comedy. And at the end, I do think and you kind of referred to this, Ronald, it was like they knitted it together in the end. And it was a version of Loki that felt more unified and complete, because even though this is a Loki from the past who hasn't been through all this character development we've seen, he sees his character development. I mean, people who are listening to this have probably watched it. He gets to watch what we know about him, about his future, about how he goes out and his development, and seeing him reckon with the knowledge. I don't know. It was an interesting position to put a character in, to see a character dealing with, oh, I would have done the right thing given the chance. Oh, shit. And then I died. Oh, it's like, that's some pretty heavy stuff to lay on this guy who is kind of like a jokey character in a lot of ways. So I don't know. Jokey Loki. He's got some depth to him. And at the end of this episode, he's actually got some pathos to him. I mean, honestly, Tom Hiddleston is great. And I think he knew exactly what he was doing coming back to do this take on this character. He was going to get a chance to kind of, like I said, to knit it all together and do something that's more about him. And I think he's capable of a lot. So as an actor.
Yeah. I think for me, I guess on paper, like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier seemed the one that I would be the most interested in, just because, like, I don't know, I really like the Winter Soldier, and I grew to really like the Falcon more as it went along, or Captain America as it went along. But as that trailer came out for this, like you kind of mentioned, John, like immediately my sight kind of shifted to this idea of what this TVA idea was, and
Time Variance Authority. We should say that.
Right. I just think that is probably the most interesting thing. I mean, like, Loki is an awesome character. He's great as Loki. And it's like, no brainer. Like, you want more of him and just explore. Like you just said, like the best part of the character's angle is that, it is an older version of the character that we know doesn't know what happened, and I think that scene when he's kind of scrolling through that stuff really is a great sequence. But for me, like watching this first episode, it's really the other stuff that is like really like hooked me to this series. Like, it's just Marvel kind of taking this opportunity, not only to give us more time with a character that most people want to spend more time with, but really kind of shining a light on a new thing in the MCU that we have spent zero time with. So it's a nice way for them to springboard a fan favorite character into a show that really kind of carves out a whole new chunk of the MCU that could have it. And I mean, they've said that this show is probably the one that has the biggest implications, in the MCU, in the movies, in the mainstream, this whole promotional thing about like, you need to see these to understand what's happening in the MCU movies. So I think that element of this show is the most interesting, even just coming out of episode just one, we're not really into it yet, but the Owen Wilson character, all the Minutemen and the Miss Minute, like all, this whole idea of what they do and the what are they called, like the three, like the gods or the time, whatever they're called,
timekeepers,
yeah,
timekeepers.
Just like that whole like animated sequence that he watches as his like introduction to where he's at is just like such a really efficient way to like save
what did it make
so
you
much
think
time. What
other sequence in a movie did it make you think of as far as like a brilliant way to sell a bunch of exposition and using that type of format? Jurassic Park, the little
Jurassic Park,
the
dinosaurs.
But I'm saying it's the explanation of the very
paperclip.
The very thing that could have been too much of a mouthful for an actor to try to deliver, they put it in this other form. I don't know. It's just like you said, Steve, it's extremely clever to present it as this thing that it's like going to jury duty and they have a video they want you to watch. There's like he has to go down a Disney World rope line where you have to go back and forth like he's at a bank or, he's at an amusement park or so. It's like all of that felt so developed, like this world, this bureaucratic world of the Time Variance Authority was pretty, even the visuals, I thought it was a really well done world.
Oh man. Yeah. It's great. It looked great. I don't know. Like, I just think that stuff is the most, it's good. I think it's going to be what makes this like the most interesting series that they may have out so far.
Yeah.
I think just the idea and even just like the mystery element, or not the mystery, but like the real central idea of how these characters are going to work together and how Loki is going to kind of redeem himself and or work with the Owen Wilson's character to kind of solve this issue that they're having. That last sequence is really a pretty great dark sequence, and it's kind of balances it out like you said. But I was just really kind of taken aback by just the idea of what this TVA is, and the visuals were great, and the fact that they kind of like are looking through his life and what the main timeline looks like all that stuff was just so well, like you just said, like so well thought out and just like kind of curated to just say like, hey, look, in 10 minutes, like you're gonna basically know all you need to know about what they are, and now we get to see what they're gonna do with him, and that's really takes you right into the story. Within 40 minutes of the first episode, you're really just off and running with it, which I thought was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it's like that scene you mentioned, John, like where they they're showing them that animated kind of intro video, and and then you go right in to be like tried. It's like they don't have the time, which is the irony of it, to explain what's going on. So everybody just gets to watch this short clip, which we do as well, and it's just like, I don't know, that's pretty clever and really well done. But I don't know. What
I
else?
love the idea too that he's about to be like disintegrated or reset if Owen Wilson doesn't come in, and I do like that kind of buddy movie relationship. It makes me think of something like Midnight Run or something like that, where you have like a character who's in a precarious situation, and there's someone else who's sort of their overseer, but also is the best person in a position maybe to help them. And I think that like Owen Wilson was great. I mean, I guess he's great.
So good.
He's just great. But this felt really, I love seeing, I don't think he does this kind of sort of fantasy or kind of, I don't know, this kind of fun thing. It was great to see him kind of chewing on, again, he's an actor that can make things very naturalistic and offhand. And I think he was a great person to sell some of that dialogue that could be kind of clunky in someone else's mouth. He was really good in those scenes. And I love the back and forth, the way that Mobius, his character, the way he kind of teases Loki. I mean, he thinks he's pretty cool, it seems, but he also is not afraid to call him on his shit,
Yeah.
And this idea of the guy who kind of believes Loki can be better than he's been it's an interesting way on an arc. Again, we've already seen the arc where Loki finds his sort of inner hero and embraces that maybe that's what he wants to be. To see that stripped away, and then I don't know, it's tricky. I think psychologically, this is an interesting place to put this character because now he knows what happened to him, but he's still this guy who never went through all that development. So, and I like the idea of showing the past, the ways that he has popped in on humanity and affected things. The reveal that he's DB Cooper was if that's the kind of fun stuff we're going to get, then I think that's a great way to approach like what has Loki been up to all this time, you know?
Yeah,
man. It's exciting stuff. You know, it there was a great deal of explanation, and but it couldn't have been done any better. Like I feel like this was sort of in order to tackle something so spectacular in scope, you kind of need one of these breathers, because it seems like once this picks up, you know, once you have the rules in place, it's going to get a little bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it already did in the first episode. Was it the agent B-15? Is that her name? Played by
Let's get some of these names that we couldn't call. It's
yeah.
I think it's Wunmi Masaku who played Hunter B-15.
yes, her. Yes,
Yeah,
her.
she's so good at it. Yeah.
And then she's always good. Gugu Mbatha-Raw as the kind of judge character. And then we don't know yet who Richard E. Grant is playing, but he's in, you know,
Yeah, I
he's
can't wait to see him.
And he could be really fun. So
small role, but Ewan Cadero's in it too. And like his little that scene when he goes in and sees it, he got the drawer of the Infinity Stones.
I love
oh
that.
My God.
Because that
me.
It doesn't take away from what the Infinity Stones were. It just says that in this place, they're nothing. You know, the Tesseract is just a cute box.
They're paperweights. Yeah.
But I also think it's interesting,
and
this gets tricky. This is, you talk about the implications, Steve. There's one line that has, or a couple of lines, but there's one plot point in this that I think has the farthest reaching implications for the whole MCU, which is when he says, "Why didn't you come here?" or what? And they say, "Oh, because that's what was supposed to happen." So all the shit that has happened thus far was supposed to happen. Thanos was supposed to snap. They were supposed to do what they did. They were all that crazy shit that was going on, where you would think the Time Variance Authority would be going, "Okay, this is a different timeline." They were going, "Nope, this is what the timekeepers have either said is okay, or they've created." I mean, that's where it gets tricky. Are they writing it, or are they making things happen? We don't know what that means. And that's where Loki's incredulousness at this idea is, like, you kind of feel it as a viewer. You're like, really? That doesn't sound right. But when she said that's what was supposed to happen, I was just like, oh, wow, what an interesting notion. Just that what we've been watching has all been like, you know, it's kind of like with Doctor Strange, even kind of knowing all the different eventualities. It's like, here's the one that's going to work. The Time Variance Authority kind of knew all along, or I don't know. It's that blows my mind, but it does make you think that this is another way maybe they can address the whole issue of like why the Eternals, when they come back, why they didn't intervene. It's because it seemed like things were taking care of themselves. Maybe, I don't know. But then if Thanos isn't a threat that brings you in, what is a threat that brings you in? So it's interesting to note, like, the Time Variance Authority, they're not really heroic. You know, they're kind of more, like I said, they're more red tape, bureaucratic types than they are. The people who are doing what's right. So
what else?
Pretty damn interesting, man. I guess trying to figure out where these people are being zapped to. You know, I don't think they're killing these people, obviously, right? When they get zapped, I guess
that seems pretty disintegrating.
Or they get killed. So where did the Infinity Stones go when they got zapped?
Well, you mean
that's one thing I thought about.
Well, there's like the portals, people going through the portals and going.
No,
then there's the guy that got.
Then the Infinity Stone, the drawer got the sort of storage for that got zapped when they were trying to find, get.
Were they in that though?
Yeah, they showed them in the.
But it was that cart he was pushing. I thought they were in a different thing.
I thought they were like in a desk. Like a drawer of the desk.
I thought it was in the moving.
Huh.
I gotta rewatch.
I have to go back and watch it again. Yeah. I mean, if that's the case, that's a good question. But it also just seems to be like like they're basically useless there, and it's just like a commodity. Like it's not. It doesn't have the importance that it has in the timeline, in action, I guess. But yeah, I like that character that was I don't know, I forgot what he said he was. He was like did he say my father like is like Neiman Marcus or something like that? Like the guy that was ahead of Loki that was getting who like wouldn't take a number, and he tried to say, then he tried to be like, he didn't give me one, like I asked for one, and they didn't even like say it, and just zapped him.
Right.
I love it. Loved it.
I love that Loki's a character who can see that and then get afraid. Like that he's got that sort of comic villain of like, oh shit, and he was patting his pockets looking for the ticket.
Through his pockets.
Like he's got it figured out, but he doesn't really have it figured out. He's, again, it's an interesting character to spend that much time with, because he has been either like evil or kind of comic in the past, and to kind of, get into his head. We don't hate Loki, for whatever reason. He doesn't seem like he's one of these other villains. We kind of do like that he's antagonistic to the heroes in a fun way. So
yeah.
He's the perfect test of, can you do a villain show, sort of. But I also think he's so close to being a hero that I could easily see this show being kind of the story of that. Once again, that he's riding that line of going up against something worse than him. Even if what he's going up against is him.
It is. Curveball.
But where did that version come from? Were you guys clear on that? Like, I feel like maybe that's the mystery. Okay. Maybe that's
I think that's kind of, that's what I was kind of thinking, was like saying before, like that's the mystery of it all, even though you know who it is. It's like, where is he from, or what, how did that version get here? But I don't know, it's just so far, it's just like I'm really into it, man. Like I'm very very excited to watch the next. Is it kind of the feeling coming out of it was like, I wish it was like there was more to watch kind of thing? For one of the first times, I feel like in these MCU shows. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I felt that way with the other two. I just can't really remember it, but I don't know. Just a lot of this premiere episode, which is great. I just think that the pacing was great. The kind of the balance of the tone, even like, again, ending on that darker note, and that scene when he sees the Infinity Stones in the drawer is so good. Like even the score over top of that scene is just so really, it's like whimsical almost. Like he's just like in awe and just like completely just like every thought's going through his mind. You can see, and he said, what does he say? He was like, is this the ultimate power or something like that? It's just the way you can see his gears going in his brain. It's just like, this is just great sequence. But I don't know, I'm all in. I think it looks great. This first episode was great.
You mentioned the score. You mentioned the score. The score was good too. I like the theme. If you stuck around for the end credits, like the Loki theme they're kind of doing it's a cool theme, because it kind of has got elements of that kind of grandiose sort of Avengers theme or the kind of Marvel fanfare, but it's not that. Like they're willing. It's got this slightly creepy, slightly more questionable tone to it, which is right for his character. So no, I agree. I feel like when we were watching WandaVision and the first few episodes of that were so distinctive, we all were like, oh, maybe this is really gonna seal the deal. And then we got to the end of that and it was a good show that didn't quite blow the doors off this idea of what a Marvel show could be. And I think the same thing happened with Winter Soldier. Frankly, we got to the end, there was so much we liked about it throughout, but it still felt like this is great, but it still feels like it's not quite that concept that's going to gel. And I think Loki thus far feels like it's got the potential to be that idea of like, this could easily be a movie. This could easily be a whole franchise, or a whole trilogy or something. This idea, the Time Variance Authority and what it represents and the way that it doubles back. So I think we are full of hope. We're always at our most full of hope at the beginning of one of these shows, but they have yet to really disappoint us overall. We've had nitpicks, but I do think this one, you're right, Steve, there's something about this one that is just a little bit more exciting because of those implications, because it does feel like it's biting off a lot. And the mysteries are all kind of forward looking rather than inward looking or something. I don't know. It's a promising pilot, or whatever you call the first episode of one of these shows. That's just a promising first chapter.
And the also just a note, I noticed the name. I guess the showrunner, the creator of the show, the writer of the show, Michael Waldron is he's doing that show that we talked about on the podcast, Heels. That wrestling show, Ronald, that
right,
the trailer for
it
looks really good. and he's also writing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and he's working on that Feige Star Wars movie too. So he's got his he's deep in the Disney world, man. And I don't know, maybe they see something in this guy, but I definitely like where the show's going so far. I'm sure this is being, just like, everybody really that's kind of been involved with these series are kind of all doing big things now. But what he's got coming up is definitely interesting, at least. In the least, rather. All right, cool. Well, I don't have much else to add. I mean, I'm excited to see the next episode. That's basically it. I mean, what's the poll question, Ronald? I mean, we usually post the poll on Twitter to get our massive listenership engaged. What's the poll question?
I don't know, man. I something is weird about the explanation about the timelines. I don't know if they're telling him the truth. Like, I don't know if they've condensed it down to one.
Oh, you've already put your full hat on. Like, you've already got it out of the drawer.
I got it
on.
You
got the tinfoil hat ready. Okay.
I'm like,
okay. Conspiracy. Yeah. Let's do it. Something's up.
Something's up. I don't know if something is weird, man. It just feels too clean cut for me. I don't know. Something's going on. Something is afoot.
I'm trying to think of what like multiple choice question you could build around this show.
Yeah,
it's an interesting. Well, you could ask people like kind of what we just talked about, like put it up against the other Marvel shows that have come out. Like based on just the first episode, how does it compare to Falcon and Winter Soldier or WandaVision? Maybe see how people feel about this series compared to the others.
That's a good idea.
Or just like vote. What was your favorite first episode or something? I don't know. Maybe there's a way to phrase that
right
makes it clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
So get on the Twitter, folks, and find out what the poll is. That's another thing. That's another thing to be excited about every week.
Yeah. I mean, we get a decent amount of participation, man. We'll see.
I like it.
Yeah. I like the one. I like the time where you, Steve, you responded to the poll, and then you were quizzing Ronald about the results because you were leading up to something one time.
Because I was the one person not.
You were the meh.
On it.
Yeah,
I was the meh.
Yes.
You could if that doesn't work out, you could always just do like a Tom Hiddleston one. You could just be like, which
Right.
Favorite. What's your favorite version of Tom Hiddleston? Pick something else beyond Loki, but I'm sure everybody will pick Loki.
Or what's your favorite Loki? Like OG evil Loki, this show's version of Loki who's all confused about his timeline, or like good Loki who died in Endgame, who's the true Loki?
Would the real Loki please stand up?
Yes.
Cool, man. All right, well, we'll get together next week. We'll go over episode 2. I'm excited to see it. Again, if you're make sure you don't miss episodes of Marvel Schmarvel, please make sure you're subscribing to the channel here on YouTube, Movie Schmovie. This channel on YouTube for Movie Schmovie, it has the main feed for our podcast, but it is the only place to see these Marvel Schmarvel episodes, unless you happen to catch it on like a Facebook timeline or one of the social media timelines. But you can trace it back here, subscribe, hit the bell for the alerts, and while you're at it, just subscribe to our podcast too, Movie Schmovie. That comes out weekly. For the most part, for the last year, we've been hitting it every week. Hey, there's a cat up there.
I know,
John.
Be careful. I saw that.
I think your cat's interested in our podcast.
Nibbler has very strong feelings about Tom Hiddleston. She's got a big crush.
But yeah, just check out the podcast as well, movieshmovie.com, and you can subscribe to the podcast if you like hearing us talk about stuff, because on that we talk about all the stuff minus Marvel. Basically, that's where this is. And yeah, so that's going to be it. Episode 1 of Loki is in the books, and we'll get together next week, and I'll talk to you guys then. As always, make mine Schmarvel.
Yeah. Schmake Schmine Schmarvel.
Schmake Schmine. It's Schmake Schmine Schmarvel.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we'll stick with it for now.
I like it.
There's a version of the timeline, but we'll go back and we'll fix that later. We'll get that.
If only this statement made sense. It fits the rhythm to say, as always, your TVA, but that doesn't really make sense grammatically.
It doesn't. It
Right.
doesn't.
But it hits the rhythm of "You've made our day." We'll find it one of these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could. Yeah, we'll figure something out. This is the time to do it.
Can we just say "You've made our day"? Is it?
I mean, we
Yeah.
always could. I
Yeah.
mean, this is branding right here.
Yeah.
We could just be consistent. That would have been the obvious thing to do, which we completely missed for how many episodes. But
Well, you know,
Right.
good on
true.
us.
like you said, we're fixing the
Yeah.
timeline.
Yeah, we'll do
Absolutely.
it. We'll do it, guys. All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye. Fuck you.
What?
Bye.